Hey guys. Picking the next graphics card to talk about can be tricky. I mean, I have so many great options to choose from. So many amazing, beloved, historical, fascinating graphics cards to choose from. So naturally, I chose the SiS 315. And oh boy, you're in for a treat today. This is PixelPipes. Yes, indeed, the SiS 315, a graphics card I'm sure everyone will remember fondly. And it's no surprise. With a plethora of graphics settings, loads of incredible performance, all with top-notch image quality, and from a respected brand known for their premium products, it's easy to see why the SiS 315 and the 300 series in general set the world on fire upon their release. Or at least warmed it up a little. Mostly from their carbon footprint. That isn't to say they run hot. Oh no, these cards run cool and quiet. You might find more of them in landfills and recycling centers than in retro computers. I mean, let's face it, SiS is not and has never been the gamer's choice for anyone remotely interested in actually playing games, but I'm here to give it a fair shot. I really hope I don't regret it. We'll start our thorough academic research the usual way. Alright, where the hell... Okay, here we are. It says here that SIS, or Silicon Integrated Systems, was founded in 1987 in Taiwan. And yeah, their product history is like 90% motherboard chipsets, and pretty much none of them were ever considered high-end or even comparable to top-of-the-line products from their peers. So yeah, firmly in the budget camp. And that's pretty much defined SIS since the beginning. When you saw those 3 letters on a chip, you could pretty much bet you weren't getting a first-class experience. If you know, you know. SIS appears to still be around today, but I have no idea what they're making. They have a website, and it's coded in annoyingly buzzy buzzwords that you see literally everywhere today on corporate tech websites, like AI, voice recognition, and so on. And there's also a lot about capacitive touchscreens here. The drop-down menu under products lists touchscreens, some kind of microphone, and a couple other low-key items. So I'm guessing the reason I don't hear much about them anymore is because they're doing embedded stuff stuck into cheap mobile products. It's just as well because I can't imagine a modern-day motherboard with a Rocket Lake or Zen 4 CPU running an SIS chipset. And I'm sure you wouldn't want to see what they'd do if they tried to take on the modern world of GPUs with ray tracing or AI upscaling. Because at one point they did take on the world of GPUs, and the creatively named 315 wasn't their first attempt at it. They started out in the late 80s with Hercules clone cards before moving on to low-cost GUI accelerators in the 90s, until eventually they made their first low-cost 3D accelerator. Now, the SIS 6326 that came out in 1997 wasn't actually a bad card by the standards of the time. The performance wasn't great, but usable in a number of games, and the image quality and effects rendering was pretty decent for its day. Granted, it was a pretty low bar to hurdle, as most third-rate 3D chip makers in the early days couldn't get their crap working right, but a win is a win. Now, unfortunately, the 6326 would limp along for entirely too long, going through minor revisions and rebrands until SIS finally released a follow-up, the SIS 300, in 1999. Like its predecessor, it was a single-pipe graphics card, but boasted an improvement of 5 times the performance, according to this Wikipedia article with multiple issues, which references this official press release that I found on the Wayback Machine. Man, what a useful resource it is. It sure would be awful if it suddenly disappeared someday. If you're looking for reviews of the 300, best of luck. What you will find is reviews of motherboard chipsets that contain a version of it embedded inside, and that's really where most of SIS's graphics technology ended up. Unfortunately, this wouldn't show their performance in the best light, having shared memory with the host CPU on a 64-bit bus. But in exchange, SIS was offering a simple graphics solution for those that just needed something basic. And basic it was. But the 300 would be supplanted by the 315, and despite its horrible name, it's actually a pretty huge advancement. boasting hardware transform and lighting, twice the number of pixel pipes, and up to 4 times the texture fill rate. It was a true generational leap. Only worth 15 name points though. Announced in late 2000 with general availability the following year, the card was priced at just $50 or so. At that price, it would face fierce competition from NVIDIA's GeForce 2 MX, ATI's Radeon VE, and Imagination Technologies' PowerVR Cairo. And well, I won't waste your time, it doesn't exactly deliver the beatdown on its rivals, but more on that in a bit. This is the 315 I have, a fabulous example complete with original box and driver disc, and this was kindly sent by a viewer of the channel, Lucas, so thank you very much. It's made by Apollo, and as 315s go, this one is rather premium, or should I say deluxe, with an additional DVI port and TV out to the standard VGA, so that's nice. It's also got an absolutely silly 128 megabytes VRAM capacity, though sadly not the DDR variety which was supported. While it would be interesting to see what kind of difference DDR makes, from what I can tell they're pretty rare, as the vast majority of the surviving cards I've seen seem to use SDR like this one. You will find 315Es with DDR a lot more often though. The 315E was a variant released a bit later which cut the memory bus in half and also halved the texture fill rate. This is essentially the version you'd find hobbling inside SiS 650, 651, 661 FX, 740, and 741 chipsets, all with varying degrees of gimped features and performance. One variant apparently even disabled the hardware TNL part, which is just extra dog poop. Let's look at the driver experience on this card, and don't worry, this won't take very long. In fact, I'm just going to do this live because there just isn't much here. You go into the device properties and you have utility manager and you have 4 settings, most of which concern color, contrast, tint, brightness. Same with video settings here. And driver mode settings, which is really just settings for your monitor. And then you have device information, which actually does have a pretty good amount of detail here with your clock speed for your graphics core and memory, as well as the amount of memory and the type of memory. So a lot more detail than some larger companies go into. And then you have driver file information, which is pretty useful, I guess, if you want to go back and delete these files, because the uninstaller doesn't do a very good job of that. And you do have a tray icon in the bottom corner, which pretty much just takes you to all those same settings here, or open system properties, which is just your device manager. Okay, that's great. Applications. Well, you can uninstall the driver right from the toolbar there. So I guess that's cool. You have an OSD, which I don't see anything. We have AGP information, and actually this is kind of useful as well. You can see that the adapter supports 2x and 1x, despite being advertised in a bunch of places as supporting 4x. The motherboard supports 4x, but only 2x is enabled here. Again, actually pretty useful information there and displayed in a way that's easy to reference. And it even tells you that your AGP GART driver is working. And funny enough, has a recommendation for VIA and ALI drivers, which it says are the most up-to-date. Okay, as of this driver, I guess. But yeah, anyway, those are all the settings. There's no option for controlling VSync. Matter of fact, if we go to Power Strip, which is usually the go-to that I use when there's no driver option to control VSync, you'll see there's no option for it here either. And apparently trying to enable Power Strip features causes the app to crash. So that doesn't help either. Now, there were some claims online that the card supports full screen anti-aliasing, but again, there's no driver option for that. So, for full scene anti-aliasing, I have to assume that there needs to be an option in the game to enable it in order for you
to be able to use it. Let's see. So Expendable is one such game. You can enable hardware anti-aliasing. So let's just go ahead and do that. We'll lower the resolution down. Let's try 800 by 600 in 16-bit color just to save on memory bandwidth here. And, well, I can't really tell. I don't think it's on. No, it's definitely not on. So that setting didn't work. Now on to performance. For the comparisons, I chose the aforementioned cards from ATI, NVIDIA, and Imagination, since they were close in price and would have likely been the ones a shopper was choosing between in 2001. They are the GeForce 2 MX200, the Radeon VE, and the PowerVR Cairo. For the test platform, I went with a Windows 98 SE machine with an Athlon XP. Windows 98 is a lot more friendly to the PowerVR Cairo, and it works well for every other card as well. I ran most tests in 16-bit color to make it easier on our budget ensemble, especially the MX200. So to start off, I wanted to use 3D Mark 99, but without a way to force VSync off, the frame rate was capped in some of the tests on the 315, so we'll start with 3D Mark 2000 instead. The performance here is quite reasonable compared to the other cards, with the Cairo definitely taking a commanding lead, and the MX200 bringing up the rear. The comparison isn't as rosy in 3D Mark 2001, with the 315 only one notch above last place, occupied by the MX200 and its truly pitiful score. 3D Mark 01 forces 32-bit color, so that's basically why the MX200 struggles so much here. I had a hunch though that the 315 might be held back by lackluster hardware TNL unit, so I reran the test with software TNL enabled. While the score did improve some, it wouldn't change its standing in the rank. Both the Radeon VE and Cairo lack hardware TNL support, so they get a boost from my overpowered CPU running soft TNL. In Expendables, the 315 does reasonably well, although shockingly so does the MX200, edging it out ever so slightly and pushing the 315 into last place. The performance of the Cairo, however, is once again untouchable, and now you see why I love Cairo cards so much. Unreal Tournament shows the worst performance out of the 315 so far. It's not bad on its own, but it's definitely not competitive with any of the other cards in the lineup. On top of that, I noticed some really bad texture issues towards the end of the test. You can see here the floor textures are blocky and pixelated, especially the one under this character as he rises up from below. Quake 3 is easily the most impressive result so far for the 315. It's neck and neck with the already impressive score from the Cairo, which is running at its peak performance thanks to the bilinear filtering setting. But the 315's frame rate is deceiving, as while running the game, I noticed textures up close look, well, pretty awful. They're very pixelated, like it's using some cheap form of filtering, either as a cheat or simply due to incompetent drivers. Regardless, your mileage may vary on if this is an issue or not during gameplay, but it's definitely worth noting. Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed is next, and the result is even more impressive. Is this another case of cheap rendering shortcuts? Well, to be honest, during the test run, I didn't see any obvious issues with rendering. Frankly, it looks pretty good, meaning this is well and truly a bona fide win for the 315. A very good result for SiS's tiny Taiwanese titan. And finally, we end on 2001's Serious Sam: The First Encounter, where the SiS 315 is back to the rear of the pack, even making the MX200 look good by comparison. Of course, none of the cards are looking quite as good as the Cairo, which ran so fast I had to keep rechecking my results, but sure enough, it's just a beast at this game with bilinear filtering selected. And then when we average the 5 games tested, we can see that the SiS 315 sits pretty much equal with the MX200 overall, with both the Radeon VE and Cairo well ahead of them.
So, to summarize everything, the SiS 315 was a middling performer amongst its budget contemporaries, and even sometimes sitting at the bottom. There were just a couple of instances where it gave top performance, in one case legitimately, and in another case a little less legitimately. Behind the scenes, I did run some of the tests in 32-bit color, and I will say the SiS card generally loses very little performance. This is very much akin to the Radeon and PowerVR cards, whereas the GeForce tends to lose almost half its performance with 32-bit color enabled. Of course, in some instances, there was a noticeable degradation of image quality, and while I could see some casual PC gamers not caring much about that, you'd expect better performance more often with that trade-off. For undiscerning gamers on a tight budget in 2001, and especially those just looking to play games from a year or two prior, it could be an okay choice. But most folks weren't using a souped-up Deluxe model like the one I'm reviewing here. Their experience with the 315 drive GPU would have likely been as an integrated graphics solution on a motherboard, particularly from pre-built systems and laptops. And those tended to be, well, drastically cut down and abysmally performing. And if you were one of those unfortunate folks wanting to dabble into PC gaming, you couldn't wait to get away from it. SiS 315 GPUs were ones you upgraded from, not upgraded to. These were the graphics chips that helped you appreciate how much better the alternatives could be. SiS might as well have disabled the 3D features entirely on the integrated side of things, because the only people happy with them were non-gamers, checking their email or updating their spreadsheets. I won't call the Deluxe card here a speed demon, but it's a bit of a shame that whatever good the 315 had the potential to do was overshadowed by weaker products based on it that were released later on, such as the 315E. Still, I enjoy getting an opportunity to explore and share a lesser-known entry in the graphics card timeline, one not made by NVIDIA, ATI, or 3FX. And I plan to cover more third and fourth tier graphics companies in future videos, so look forward to that. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'm Nathan, and this has been PixelPipes. This is one of the craziest things I've seen in a while. Why?